welcome back to Real Estate Real Home Stories. I'm Sue Curlette, and I'm here with John Smith, my
How you
co-host
guys doing
today.
today?
Excellent, excellent. What are some tricks that we can do? How do we welcome people into our home? And one of the things
Price
that we
range.
do, well, price point, but we also like host open houses. And when you have an open house, I being a female in this market, you got to keep in mind that when you're hosting an open house, sellers, buyers, realtors, whatever, whoever, everybody, your picture is hanging on that sign, right? So as a female in this industry, you're putting your picture out there, and we don't live in the best, safest environment, right? In the safest world. So
There's no safe environment.
you probably don't think as much about these things as we do, John,
Nope.
because we're, our signs hanging up there. And then we go out a few days earlier and we put open house, right? So anybody that needs a $20 fix, thinks they could go in and just rob the realtor, right? I mean, it's a problem
You
in our
can.
industry. It's a
You
problem in
can.
our industry,
You
right?
can.
So most of the time in an open house, police officers just know you're always welcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you need a water, I guarantee you the realtor probably has bottled water sitting there, cookies, crackers, neighbors. If you want to stop in and check on your agent, feel free. You might have a good look at the property and get an idea of what you want to do with yours, or you might have a friend that is looking for a house in your neighborhood, and you can say, oh, hey, they're having an open house on Saturday. So there's two ways to look at that. But sellers, one of the things that I do, and John's gonna laugh at me for this, but when the house is lived in and somebody's in the house, what I like to do is have the seller write up their experiences in the home. And you've probably seen these, John, but when you walk in the door, on the table is going to be the flyer, but there's also going to be a welcome to our home letter from my sellers, because I want them to express to the buyers what their findings were. My kids played band at Centennial High School, or, you know what I mean? My kids attended St. John's Catholic Prep in Frederick, and we were able to be involved with football and cheerleading. And, I mean, you can share the love of your house. And I think it also, John's like, she's so emotional, but you can also kind of leave the house knowing that you've given that information to the buyer, right? You've shared with the buyer
Yeah.
that you loved Winfield. I'm using my house as a neighborhood or as an example. Winfield football. My kid played Winfield football, and I met so many families that are local to us through that organization. And my daughter, played basketball and softball. So just sitting down and kind of writing it out is therapeutic to both the buyer who's getting it and the seller who's leaving it. We know, sellers, that you love your house, you love your neighborhood, you love your neighbors. A lot of times we get really connected, and that's home. You know what I mean? So our community has a neighborhood cookout once a year. The lady moved, so we really have, the lady that hosted it hasn't done it. She moved like 2 or 3 years ago. So we haven't done it, and I kind of miss it. Am I going to be the one to do it? Probably not. Let me not lie.
Right.
I'm probably not doing it, but
Right.
somebody in my neighborhood might hear this podcast and go, Sue wants the cookout. Yes, I'll come. Please, I'll even help, but I don't want to do it.
It's a
So
lot of
those are
work.
some tricks that I use so that my sellers can share. Sellers, like we said in the last podcast, we don't want you sharing directly with the buyer, right? Because then you're
Nope.
communicating. It's fine at settlement to have a few minutes and talk about things, but it's really nice to be able to share your feelings, put them out there. The buyer's going to read your letter. I promise you, they're going to read it, and they're going to get a good feel for how you felt for the neighborhood.
Okay.
It's a good trick. What what do you do like that, John? Is there anything that comes to mind that you try to get your sellers to do to motivate, the buyers that come in?
So I'm from a little different cut here.
Yeah.
I spend my time working with the seller about putting out the best possible product that they can afford to put out,
Right.
so that the majority of the people that come through the front door can see the house as theirs, not
Absolutely.
as the sellers. I mean, and I sell them with stuff in them as well as
Yeah.
stuff not in them.
Right.
I happen to be co-listing agent on a very large property. In fact, the largest sale in Upper Marlboro, I think to date, I could be wrong because it was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And the lady had a wonderful little daughter, the couple,
Yeah.
and her bedroom was full of all kinds of, including these big letters
Okay.
across the wall that had their child's name on it.
Okay.
And then they had certificates from the pre-K that
Okay.
the little girl went to. And so
Right.
we had to have a talk about safety.
Okay.
And
That's a very good point.
we took all of that down. I said, I need you to depersonalize the property. That includes your wedding photos, your vacation photos that are on the wall. That
Right.
includes any connection between your daughter and wherever she may attend school. You got to depersonalize it, right?
So
We've all
I
gone
want to,
into the house. We've all gone into the house,
yeah.
and on the stairwell to the upstairs
Yeah.
is 400 pictures hanging on the wall.
I have, I
That's
have,
great. That's
yeah,
great.
I have to share a story because you are going to laugh. Okay.
Okay.
Had an FBI agent. Okay. I can't, I had an FBI guy and we're looking in this house and he goes, she married her coach. And I'm like, what? And he goes, she married her high school coach. And I'm going, are you, what do you, how do you know that? You know? So he walks over and there's a picture, right, of her volleyball team. I think it was volleyball, her volleyball or basketball, whatever it was. It's
Yeah.
irrelevant. But here's a picture of
The team.
her and the coach like
Okay.
behind them, so it's the
Yep.
team picture and that's the girl. You clearly that's the girl. And then that's the coach that's right, like, a couple people away behind her. And then you see the wedding picture and it's her and the coach. And
Yep.
he's like, look, I mean, now this is an FBI guy. So this is the kind of stuff he does. He's looking for, he's piecing it together. I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God. We laughed. We were like, this is insane. So,
I
um,
can piece them together.
so, so it's
I can
funny.
tell you who's living in the house or who's not living in the house.
So, right. Well, I mean, and that's something that is, this is super personal stuff. So John and I do not, we fork off in this because I really like when you walk into a house, but I'm emotional, right? Like I'm an emotional person.
I'm not.
John's not. So this is the difference between the two of us. Ladies, you're probably more emotional than your husband. I'm just going to say, when you walk into a house, you're picturing your kids having breakfast at the counter. You're picturing, you know, the backyard where you're going to host barbecues. We get it. We're doing that too. We're not different. We're not like saying, oh, we're just looking at the hardwood. I mean, there's a lot of feeling that you get from a house. We're
I look in the
opposites, right?
backyard.
Like,
I look in the
yeah,
backyard. I look in the
it's,
backyard.
yeah,
But
but you
but
could,
the
right.
but the
So
foo-foo stuff, it
I'm
doesn't move
I'm
me. Foo-foo doesn't
foo-fooey.
move me.
John's like, take the pictures down, and I'm like, don't take your pictures down.
Take
You
them
know what I
down.
mean? It's really legitimately two totally different outlooks. Now,
It's
if you're
preference.
going to paint, so let me say this, if you're going to put fresh paint on the walls, please don't put the pictures back up. You know
Hell
what I mean?
no.
Like, I'm not saying that. But if you are sharing some personal stuff on your counter, like whatever, that's fine. I personally like a staged house or a house that has some character, and
Mhm.
meaning you're sharing your feelings. It's one of the reasons I do the welcome to my home letter. um
Okay.
people, but that's just because you're getting both perspectives here, right? Like John is going to be the guy that walks you in and says, don't look at that picture because that's going, and he's right. You know what I mean? I'm the kind of person that goes, look at how nice this family looks. You know what I mean? So there's both ways to look at it. You just got to do what's right for you. But sellers, if you've done a repair like painting the walls, or you've done something, then I will never tell you to put your stuff back up. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you don't,
So let's talk
it's
for
a
a minute
personal
about
choice.
painting. Let's talk a minute
Paint
about
is
painting. Okay.
okay. Yep.
So it's very common that I'll walk into a property
Yes.
and I see two things. I see a million pictures on the wall. Now, you're seeing, oh, it's telling the story, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
Um, and what
not a
I see,
million. 5 is fine.
well, listen, let's see. So here's a trick that I use personally, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Because I have somebody who likes pictures, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen those little picture trays? You know what I mean by picture trays?
Yeah.
So you put them up on the wall. It's like a ledge. It's about yay wide. It's got a lip on it.
Yeah.
You sit the picture up in there and you tilt it a little bit and it catches on that little lip.
Yeah.
And they come in, you can buy 2 or 3 foot sections.
Right.
In my particular living room, I have 2 or 3 foot sections together.
Okay.
So here's the beauty to this, folks. Please listen. Listen. The beauty to this is um, just like things change for the season,
You can
right?
change the pictures. Okay.
Change the pictures without what? Knocking another damn hole in the wall.
So,
Okay?
right. And my husband will tell you that I am the queen of like nails. I don't even use little nails. I like put a big old nail in there and then I hang my pictures. And you know what? It's bad. I know that when I go to sell my house, I'm going to have to paint before I sell. But
It's
I'm
not
living in
paint.
my house for me, right? Like when I'm in my house and I'm living in my house, I'm living in here for me.
It's
And
not it's not just painting. It's not
well,
painting.
right, you got to fix the drywall that I've damaged. I get it.
When somebody comes to me and says, I need to move, what is it going to cost? And I say, well, see, you got 4,700 pictures on the wall. By the time you take them all down, and listen, this is a real number. It takes between 2 and 3 days to skim out all of those nail pops.
But okay, so I mean, I hear you. And
I'm
that's
about
okay. So
dollars and
when you're
cents.
getting your house ready, sellers, when you're getting your house ready, remember that you as a whoever, as a couple, you might walk in and love the pictures and John is seeing nail holes and work. Like, so let's just say that's the difference. I'm seeing family and love and look at how cute, and John's seeing work. So that is a good point. And that's where we'll move on to flooring.
But
Okay.
one last thing, Sue.
Okay.
How
We
many
got to get
times have you,
past the
I know,
nail.
no, how many times have you been in a house with a buyer? Because this happens to me with almost every buyer.
Okay.
I love the house, but God, the paint colors are atrocious.
That is a solid point, John, because one of the things that we try to get people to understand, I mean, we're
Yep.
pricing out properties. People are paying between, 5 for a smaller home and $10,000 for a larger home. These are real numbers. I just got an estimate. I think the last client that painted her house, I think she paid around 10 grand and it was about 3,000 square feet. So what is that? $3 a square foot? Is
Yep.
that is
Yep.
my math right?
Yep.
So if you're paying $3 a square foot and you're letting your kids do what I did, keep in mind those are going to be expenses that you're going to incur before putting your house on the market,
Yep.
or your realtor's going to ask you to do that because we don't want to put price tags for your buyers when they walk in the door, right? Like we don't want them thinking about all the money they have to spend.
So back to the same issue. So things cost a lot more than they did pre-pandemic. And so I
Right. It's
try to
sad.
mitigate with
Very sad.
buyers. I try to mitigate that whole painting and flooring. I'm like, it's a preference. I've had so many clients, sellers, put down flooring, come to find out, buyer ripped it out.
So
It's,
I'm
it's a
with you on
gesture.
that. I think that, but here's here's the thing: you got to comp it out both ways. When you have a house that is going to become an investment property, like so, you're going to go away from buyers because it's just that bad, right? You got shag carpet from 1970. You can't have that. I mean, you can, and that's going to
Yeah.
get you the price tag. So you've got to be able to do the math and say, look, it's going to cost me $30,000 but my realtor's pricing it as is, and my realtor's giving me a price renovated. So there's a big difference in renovation. That's a big word too.
Yeah.
But if you're going to get 50,000 because you did the floor and the paint, um, then pay the 30,000, get the floor and the paint and whatever else you need to have
Right.
done.
Yeah.
The bottom line is you really, this is a personal individual thing. Um,
We often talk about as is, let it go, which
Let it
is
go. Right. When
basically
we say let it
so.
go, we're like, okay, there's too much money that you're going to spend. Let an investor come in and do
Well,
it.
it's sometimes it's not even that it's too much money you're going to spend. It's I don't have it.
And
I
there's
don't
there's
have it.
the right. There are companies out there now. Alcurbio is one. I don't mind sharing that.
Okay.
They're able to come out and they'll give you an estimate on what it's going to cost for them to come in and do the work for you.
Yeah.
Um, and and that is going to be a little bit more expensive than if you go hire your own contractors, but they
Yeah.
get paid at closing. So it's certainly something to think about when you're putting your house on the market and you
Yeah.
know that you've done the paint, like myself. I'm guilty of this. I mean,
Well,
there's
I
nothing.
think I think if you're a seller at minimum, it's paint and flooring. If you don't want to do anything else,
Yeah, I'm kind of
so
with
be
you.
it. You know,
Yeah.
it.
I
However,
have a house that we're getting ready to put on the market that needs a new slider and needs new windows. And the seller's just not going to put the money out for that. So that we don't know if the buyer wants, lifetime warranty windows, or if we should go to the auction and buy windows and have a handyman put them in. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like licensed handyman can do certain things. So, and we'll probably have one come on and talk to you. And then there's also, your licensed general contractors. There's different people for different roles.
yeah.
Um, but
Can you actually get a general contractor? I mean, anybody, my buddies who are doing, I would say
right
mid
now,
to high
yes, you
end,
can. Right now,
mid
you
to high
can.
end work, mid to high end work, they're 6 months out.
It's very hard, right? It's very hard. And, one of the things that we saw many years ago, and I'm going to say this because I think that everybody needs to hear it, and I'm not trying to bash the contractors, but um, I have seen time and time again where contractors, regardless of who they are, they have bills as well. And when they stop paying their bills and they go out of business, and you're halfway through your sale or halfway through your renovation, um, it's a big problem. So make sure that you're not prepaying too much to those contractors.
Yeah,
You don't want to give
I'd
them
say
half
right
up
now, Sue,
front.
it's different.
Yeah, you
It's
don't want to do
different now.
half.
It's different now.
It's very different
Yeah, but
than it used to be.
it's different now
What
because
do you mean?
everybody has equity. Everybody has equity, and let's be honest, and I'll say it,
Yeah,
interest rates suck.
they're
And
horrible.
so, we talked about folks who are just hunkering down, but they're like, yeah, you know what? I put that deck project off for a while. I'm going to go ahead and do it because I know if this market continues, I'm going to get all that money back plus, but I'm going to pay a premium for it. And they
Yeah,
understand that. So, you know, it's one thing to get a landscaper to, or you, I mean, you can call, you can go to, example, you can go to, I can go to a nursery like Sun Nursery in Howard County, and
okay,
I can buy bulk black mulch, and I
right,
can get a yard or two or three, and I can have it dropped in my driveway, and I can have a couple guys, because I know guys who work for landscaping companies Monday through Friday, and on the weekends they're always looking for side work.
absolutely.
And I drop the mulch, and they'll come do it. That's one thing. But I've seen some of these additions, and I'm like, they're not that big, and I'm like, you paid $160,000 for that?
For that, I
Yeah,
know. If you're so and this goes back to like Love It or List It. If anybody's seen that show, I
yeah,
tell my buyers, I mean, I'm sorry, I tell my sellers and my buyers, like, when people say I want to buy an investment property, the first thing I do, and every time, the first thing I do is I say, I want you to watch 10 episodes of Love It or List It. Because what we've talked about previously is when you start peeling that banana back, right? You don't know what black spots you're going to see on the inside. And that's exactly the same theory with your home. When you start peeling back those peels, that, when you start taking off the top coat, there's some surprises that you're going to find. So we always say, be careful what you choose to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's an estate, and John, you deal with this all the time, but if it's an estate sale and you've not lived in that property and you really don't have any idea, you might want to go that as is option and let investors or people that are willing to put the work in
Yeah.
come in and start peeling that away themselves after they bought it. Um,
It's a challenge. I will tell
right.
you that it happens in at least 50% of the properties that I'm involved in where the client says, I tell you what, if you'll supervise, I'll pay the bill. And I got to make sure that not only do they got to have, they can't have, we can't be spending $35,000 and they got 50
Yeah.
available. No,
So, and
it doesn't work.
here's another thing to keep in mind. Realtors now are legally bound to make sure that the people that we refer to you, so anybody that's referred to you, we are legally bound to making sure in Maryland, I can only speak about Maryland right now, and I think PA, but
Yeah.
um, we have to get a copy of their license. We have to ask them for a copy of their license before we can refer them. So contractors out there, when these realtors are saying, send me your license, they have to do that before they can refer you. So if
Yeah.
you don't have a license, don't call your realtor. Like, don't even call me. Don't call in here. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to refer you to anyone. Buyer, sellers, if you're hiring somebody, there's reasons that we're now required to make sure they're licensed and insured. Be very careful, because that's what we're talking about. That industry in its own, just like real estate or just like any other industry, has really high lows and really low, or really high highs and really low lows, right?
Yep.
And some people are going to say, oh, no, it's customary to give me 50% up front. No, it's not. It's customary for you to give whatever you're comfortable with. You know what I mean? Whatever you're willing to lose. If that's
Sure.
25%, I think that's pretty fair. And then you could have 4 different increments of paying that 25%. You do whatever you do, because we're not part of that. But we're just saying, buyer seller beware. You know what I mean? And these podcasts are meant for just that. Beware.
Yeah.
These are stories that we're sharing that we run into all the time,
Yeah.
suggestions we're making based on our experiences. And we want you to be able um to not get super run over in the process, right, John? I mean, that's what we're dealing with.
We are, and I will tell you that since about 2023, when I have a seller who needs to do work, and they're like in sticker shock, and I'm like, "Are you
It's
in sticker
hard right
shock at the
now. Yeah,
grocery store?" Because I'm in sticker shock at the grocery store, and they're like, "Yeah, I
everyone.
am." And I'm like, "Are you in sticker shock when you get gas?" And they're like, "Yeah, I am." And I said, "That's why you should be in sticker shock when the plumber just gave you a $10,000 quote to
Yeah.
redo one bathroom."
Yeah. I mean, and that's why we're telling you guys, and I'm going to back up a little bit and say that John's probably right, sellers. I'm admitting it. You got to get your house ready before you sell it. So if it's a year
Or
and
price it
you want
right,
to sell
or price
next
it right.
summer, right? If
Yeah,
you want to sell next summer, um, then give yourself that time, right? Give
exactly,
yourself that time to take on these little projects.
exactly.
And once you take the pictures down, for example, don't put them back up. Neutralize your house. It's got to be neutral. Your pictures and your story can be as bold and as loud as you want. You can get tablecloths. You can get, different things that set on your tables that are going to go with you, that don't have to be attached to the
No, no,
walls or
no. I mean,
whatever.
if you're moving, let's say, for example, let's say you have 40 pictures on that, on a particular, let's say you have 40 pictures in a particular area that's about your family. That's great.
Yeah. And it's
So
Christmas and you're moving them around.
rather than put
Yeah.
them back up, take the 10 that you're most fond of, pack the others away, right? Not safely, because
Yeah.
sometimes they have glass in the frame.
Right.
Pack them safely. Take the 10 and display them elsewhere in your house,
Yeah.
right?
Display
But
them. We're not telling, and you leave them up if you want. Don't, these agents, John, I'm talking about you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
That's
kidding.
fine.
No, some agents are going to come in and say, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do this. Remember that there are people like me that want to feel warm when they walk in your house. There is
Right.
no smaller room than an empty room, right? The empty room is the smallest room in the house.
Yep.
You can't visualize, even I've been doing this 20 years now. And when I walk into a master bedroom that is 15 by 15, right? That's a huge bedroom to most people. You
Mhm.
walk into this 15 by 15 and it feels like 12 by 12 or 10 by 10 because you don't see the king size bed. And you're like, you start wondering, can a king size bed fit in here? And you're starting to walk it out and your agent's pulling out the tape measure and going, okay, that's 7 feet. Look how big this room is. And then you start placing, you're counting it out, you're measuring it out, and you're going, you still have 4 feet on that side and 4 feet on this side. This is plenty big for your bed, for your end tables, for your
And
dresser,
and you can do that in a 30 or 45-minute showing.
yes.
Okay.
Or I go over in my showing. I will be the first to admit, and sellers hear me because you're probably going to be mad if I'm showing your house. If my client likes your house enough that they're trying to place their furniture, I'm not worried about my window. You shouldn't be worried about my window either. Most of the time we walk in a room or we walk in a house, we're there 5 or 10 minutes and we're out. That means, sellers, if you're sitting in the RV watching us, that we don't like your house that much most of the time. You know what I mean? There's no always in this conversation, but most of the time, if we're in there for 10 or 15 minutes and it's a 2,000 square foot house, then we're taking it in and we're moving on to the next one. If we're in there, if your people are in there for 30, 45 minutes, they're liking it. They're putting their own
Right.
furniture in there. They're picturing where the kids' rooms would be. They're picturing all this. It's another reason why in the last podcast we told you that you don't want to be home because buyers want to be able to picture themselves in your house.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we get these calls from a seller, and it's May, right? And they're like, "I want to be on the market June 1st," and you're like, "Okay," and you walk in there, and then the expectation needs to be that, okay, this is my list of things that I would like you to do, and this is my list of things that I need you to do. They're not the same,
Right.
right? And when we look in, there's five different, every room's a different color, right? I mean,
Right.
it's very common that people live like that. Every single room is a different color. We're probably going to say, what's our budget? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're probably going to say, what's our budget? Do we have a budget? And you get this look from sellers that say, what do you mean? What's my budget? What are you asking? Well, is there a budget for us to work on getting your house ready for market, or are you going as is? What do you mean as is? Like, that's why we're doing this podcast. You have to know what to
Right.
expect.
So if I sold you a house, say 5 years ago, it's not that hard to what I'm going to use just this word, to bring you into real estate compliance, right? About because you already watched those shows. However, if you're a seller that last moved 25 years ago,
You don't know, right?
I got to use a crane, a forklift, a backhoe, a loader, because in their mind, hell, 25 years ago, I painted my own house. Well, I'm not 25 years younger, right? And so you're thinking, and I
I
remember
can do
way
this.
back because when I was newly married as a kid, I had a
As
side
a
hustle
kid.
and I painted and I know how to paint. I can paint in these clothes and not get any paint on me. I can
Don't tell
roll, I
people
can
that, John.
brush,
Don't tell
paint
people
belongs
that.
on the wall. But here's what I remember. An expensive can of paint back then,
Yeah,
$30.
yeah, yeah,
Expensive can of paint today, gallon,
yeah,
100 bucks,
yeah.
100 bucks. So when we start talking about a
Crazy.
budget with somebody who's been in a house for 25 years and they're saying, well, what would it cost to paint? 3, 4, 5 grand? I'm like, hell no. go.
Right.
Like
And
10,
yeah, I
12.
mean, it's really, really surprising. And we get surprised. We get surprised all the time. I
All the
mean, it's
time.
all the time. If an agent tells you they know, go to somebody else.
We get surprised all the time.
Right. If
I got a
they're
flooring
going to
coat.
tell you they know, go to somebody else.
I
I
got a
mean, it's
flooring
that
coat the
simple.
other day, 13 grand.
Yeah. Yeah.
13 grand.
Now, there are contractors that we have worked with previously that, we're comfortable with, and we're able to say, look, why don't you talk to John Smith and Tom Smith and Bob Smith and, whoever else and get pricing because they can be very, very different. I
Yeah.
mean, you might get Bob Smith who desperately needs to pay his mortgage, right?
Mhm.
And he's licensed and he's insured and he's just looking for a job. And you might be able to say, I need you to do this job. I only have 5 grand. And he might say, okay. So negotiate, like tell them you don't have to go with the first guy and you don't have to go with the
No,
first price. But
no.
you do need to know that it's important that your house is neutralized. You know what I mean? Like kind of neutral. Doesn't have to be impersonal, just has to be neutral. So that base, the floors, the walls, very important. The two most important rooms for me, John, and you can agree or disagree, kitchen, number one, master bedroom or owner suite, number two.
Yeah.
Kids' room, sadly, kids, we love you, but they don't care. Right? They don't matter nearly as much as the kitchen and the master bedroom.
And I would say third is probably outdoor space because most people spend some time
Absolutely.
outside. Um,
Which
the
leads
the
to a
tricks.
buyer.
So here's some of the tricks, right? So numerous times I'll go into a house and the client will say, "Well, I really need to redo my kitchen," and I said, "Well, hold on a second. Let's look at your cabinets. Are they in okay shape? Right? Are they
Yeah.
clean?"
Yeah.
So here's something that most people don't realize. Sellers, buyers, your fingers and your hands put off oils. So does cooking,
Yeah.
right? And some people cook heavier foods than others, right? Depending on your
Absolutely.
upbringing.
Spicier.
If
Yeah.
you're Italian, man, there's tomato sauce in friggin' toast, right?
Exactly. There's
We're
there's
Italian.
everything everywhere.
So here's a trick because we're talking about tips and tricks.
Yeah.
So those remember everybody in the 1980s and 90s had those flat panel oak cabinets,
Yeah.
and your lowers, usually the lowers are not bad unless your kids like to swing on that one cabinet,
Right.
or some kids like to stand in that third drawer so they can get something off of the counter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So usually the base cabinets are fine, but the upper cabinets that you put your fingers on,
Yeah.
right? They kind of look like they're dirty on the edge where you open the cabinet.
Yeah.
Um, Everybody probably thinks that architect, not architect, well, pulls, cabinet pulls
Yep.
were designed to make them look luxurious. No, they were designed for you to keep your damn dirty ass hands off the cabinets. So if you're
Yeah.
dipping in the
So
spaghetti sauce, right? You dip it in the spaghetti sauce, or you're making bacon and you're opening cabinets,
yeah.
that grease got transferred. So here's my trick.
Okay.
So you can clean those.
Okay.
Okay. So the way you clean those is you start out with uh, a bucket of water and some type of cleaning detergent. You can use Top Job, anything like that. Take everything out of the cabinets, all the paper and the little rubber doily mats and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and you wash them, right? You scrub them down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can take and really as you have this like hot mixture of like Top Job and hot water,
Yeah.
you're squirting the faces, the inside and the cabinet doors and drawers with Murphy's oil soap, right?
Okay.
And that'll help you cut the grease. Now
Okay.
you got to leave them open for a couple days so that they dry out really, really good. And
Okay.
then they have this great product at Home Depot or Lowe's. I think it's called Duraluster, and you put it on like a I don't know, I wouldn't want to say dishcloth, but
Like a
like a
rag.
cleaning
Yeah.
towel, like a rag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you wipe down the fronts, not the shelves, okay? The fronts, the face fronts of the cabinets, and the doors inside and out. Let that dry. Your cabinets will look brand new. What did that cost you? Let's see. Top Job is probably, I want to say it's $4 because it used to be two at Walmart.
Yeah.
Cost you $4. The Murphy's Oil Soap is probably 6 to 8, and the Duraluster is say 8 or 10. And your labor, right? And your cabinets look great. And so you say, well, what about this old Formica counter? So rather than us putting in new cabinets, because there's nothing wrong with your cabinets, we'll save the money off of replacing the cabinets, and we'll get a new piece of quartz or granite countertop with a new sink and a new swan's neck faucet. And you just did a complete kitchen makeover for, depending on the size of your kitchen, say 3 grand.
Yep. Like John has a really good point. If you can do the work yourself, then these are some things that you can share with your agent. We sound, when we go in there and we're telling you, we're kind of thinking out loud, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're thinking out loud while we're doing this podcast and we're sharing with you. We're trying to be honest. And when your agent says, do I have a budget? They're really going to go by that. So when you tell your agent $500, you got $500. You know what I'm going to do? Give me my $500. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to look at the light. That's the first thing you see when you come up to the door.
Yeah.
Go look at yours, people, because chances are it's either really good or it's kind of nasty, and that's the first thing somebody sees. So that might be $15 at Home Depot. I mean, honestly, we're not telling you to go spend $100 and get the nicest one. We're saying it's got to look good and clean and fresh. So if you can take it off and spray paint it, I have investors. I swear to you, I'm going to get one of them on here. He is the best with the spray can of anybody I've ever seen. I
We all
have
do
watched
that.
him take down light fixtures that were brass,
And
like
spray them.
the old 80s brass lights.
Spray them.
He'll take them outside, and the next day I come back and I see these new lights, and I'm like, oh, they're amazing. And he's like, I spray painted it, Sue. Get over yourself. And I'm like, what? That's spray paint. So hardware is um really important as well. If it has a brass chain, go buy a brushed nickel chain if you're painting it black or silver, or you can match the chain. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about like kitchen chandeliers or chandeliers, whatever. um there's ways for you guys to do this in a very inexpensive way. I am at an age now, and I'll tell you the truth, I not only was I bad at painting when I was younger, I'm still bad at it, and now I don't have the energy to do it. I just painted my granddaughter's room. It's not really my granddaughter's room, the spare room, whatever. But when she's here, it's her room. And I painted it like this bright pink. And she
All
calls
four
it
walls.
pink.
All
All
four
four
walls.
walls are bright pink. Yeah, I don't care because I'm living here and I'm doing it for her. And I know that. I also know and accept that when the time comes for me to sell my house, I am going to hire a professional to come in and paint my house. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm taking both of those things into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm letting it happen, and
Mm-hmm.
yes, I know I'm going to have to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. If
Yep.
you don't want to make the changes, don't go crazy. Stay neutral.
Right.
Let your crazy be in your bedspread or in your comforters or in
Yeah.
your whatever. Let that be your expression,
Right.
right? It doesn't have to be the walls and the floor.
Right.
Another rule that I tell people before I see their house. So before I come out, I say a few things to my sellers. If it doesn't have legs, John's going to laugh because I say it all the time. If it doesn't have legs, it doesn't go on the floor. It's a simple rule that you can follow that's really going to help you. A pallet, right, has legs or has a base. So legs can also apply to a base. But if you put a pallet down in your floor in your basement and you store your boxes on that pallet, not only did you take the time to get your boxes off the ground, if there is water or whatever down there, you've now given somebody an ability to see that you're not hiding something under those boxes.
Yeah.
So little simple tricks that are going to save you concern and worry, right? And money.
So
Pallets are
I
free if you go to a place that has a bunch of them.
so I I know something, several things
Okay. Tell,
that have
tell.
legs that absolutely belong on the floor.
What?
Pets.
Pets have legs.
They belong on the floor.
Right. If it has legs, it goes on the floor.
Oh, okay, right,
Right? If
right.
it has legs, it's
But
supposed to be on the floor.
the pet
What
always
doesn't
belongs on
have
the floor.
legs
The
that we
pet.
see on the floor? Right. Tell
What
me, John,
doesn't
give
have
me three
legs?
things that we see that don't have legs that are on the floor.
Junk,
What
right?
else?
Junk, junk,
Yep.
and junk. No, junk. Um, so have you ever been in somebody's utility? Oh, so
Shoes.
have you ever been in somebody's
Shoes.
utility room and be
Yep.
like, a bomb went off in here?
Yep.
So
Oh, I know, right?
I told this story about the lady in Lanham who had the water problem. Her backyard was soggy.
Yeah.
So when she was listed previously, I was flipping through the photos.
Yes.
So here's a tidbit for buyers and sellers, especially
Okay.
buyers when
Okay.
they're home searching.
Yes.
Okay, buyers, when you're home searching, try this, say for the next week.
Okay.
When you see properties and you open the listing and they have pictures, one of
Yes.
35, one of 53, whatever, don't go through them front to back, go through them back to front.
Okay.
The reason being is because the pictures of the less desirable aspects of the property are in the back.
If they're even put in there, I don't put undesirable pictures in mine.
Well,
Like I try not to.
invariably, an agent will allow pictures to go on a property without previewing each and every one, right?
It's happened to
Either
me.
they have an admin or their photographer uploads them directly for them.
That's what happens. Yeah.
So the reason I go through them backwards, and again, I've been doing this a long time. I can
Yeah.
see things in a photo you cannot see, buyers and sellers, because I've been doing this a long time. And I'll give you an example. So I go through the pictures backwards, right?
Okay.
Because I want to see that area in the basement that's not finished.
Yeah.
However, I can see from the picture those little fins that stick up along the wall, right? Along the wall, the little fins.
Little fins.
Those the little fins.
What
That's
fins?
fins, right? It's
I don't know what
water.
you mean.
It's waterproofing.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa,
I
whoa.
can
Okay,
see the
now that
little
I was
thing
like,
standing
what?
up from the
Fins?
foundation, and it's
Yeah.
black, and it's a little fin. And so if you got
Now I
right up
got
on
it.
the wall and you look down on it, it's like this, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's why I say I go through the pictures backwards first, because the first thing comes to mind is they got a waterproofing problem.
Well, if it's been repaired, that's a good thing.
Potentially.
Potentially. I mean, if it's done right and it's done professionally,
Well,
then it's
how would
warranted.
you know? How would you
Because you're
know?
going to ask, a good agent is going to ask for a copy of the
Okay,
warranty. Yeah.
so
I mean,
I've been there and done that, right?
good point, John. And that's where I think that people really need to listen to what you just said, because what he's telling you is when you see things, and whether you see them in person or in the photos, you need to make a list and pay attention to those little details, because those details John saw, he knows it's been waterproofed. A lot of people don't have the money, because waterproofing is not cheap, to go out and hire Be Dry or some big company that's going to come in and give them a lifetime warranty on that system. A French drain is sometimes necessary. I'm calling it a French drain because I'm not a
It is.
waterproofer, right?
It is.
But that's pretty much what it is. And it's going to go along the inside of the property. You're going to see concrete where they dug up the entire interior row
Perimeter. Yeah.
perimeter, and then they put piping in there, and they're basically keeping the water out of the foundation. They're keeping it
The
out.
the water gets channeled into the sump pump. So
Correct.
the reason why it's an issue is I sold a house in Catonsville and we saw it when we walked through it, and we got the letter from the warranty company, from the waterproofing company, and
Okay.
everything was hunky dory. And so it was around this time of year, right?
Right.
I think it was around Mother's
High
Day or
water.
right
Yes.
after
Rain.
Mother's
We get a
Day.
lot of rain. Yep.
I got a call. So the new owner, who was an investor, just
Yes.
got access to the property, and he wanted me to meet him there on a Monday, and I said I would. So it was raining like cats and dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I mean, it was almost old Ellicott City type of crazy rain, right? So
Okay.
I get to the property. I have a couple pieces of this
Right.
under the story, and then I'm going to explain to you about waterproofing a little bit. So I get to the house. It's raining like buckets. I never use an umbrella. I got an umbrella, and I'm running to the front door.
Yeah.
Back when I wore pants, and
Oh.
it ruined a $200 pair of loafers, which I threw
Oh, geez.
away.
Yeah.
And so I get there and I said, "Hey, Lo, I'm calling him, right?"
Right.
And I'm calling him, and he says, "I'm in the basement. Come down here." So I go down the basement, right? And they had all that waterproofing done along this neighbor's yard, because in
Yeah.
Catonsville, a lot of the property sloped like this, and so I won't get into why it happened, but anyway, the sump pump was going off about every 40 seconds. And so where they had put the waterproofing in was great. And where they went around the corner, they only went around the sump pump crock about 18 inches. So literally, I mean, it ran the whole length of the basement, right
Yeah.
in the back, but it only ran about this much in the corner where the sump pump crock. Well, where the pipe that was going out was dissipating, it was dissipating next to the downspout. So all the water from the downspout and the sump pump was going right down the foundation, right back in the crock, right back up, right back out, right back up, right back out, right
Circling
back
it.
out, right
Yeah.
back out.
Yeah.
So, so when you say, well, you got a letter and it guarantees it,
Yeah.
yeah, he had to call that company, and they had to extend it 4 more feet.
Yeah.
Older houses, like say a house, a 60s house in say in Towson or Baltimore County,
Yeah.
more than likely, see, new house, new construction, that French drain is not only outside, but it's inside, and they connect together, and they all dissipate into the sump pump crock to move all of the water that would happen to run down the foundation on the outside and dissipate underneath the slab. All of that gets channeled away. But in older construction, more than likely, I mean, if it was in the 30s or 40s or 20s, probably has no French drain. But so the French drain in the like 50s and 60s and 70s, they only had one, and it was on the outside. And so those drains get overrun with roots and all kinds of stuff. And so
Yep.
consequently, that's why you see in older homes, you'll see that busted up perimeter around the inside of the house, and they added a French drain, because more than likely either the outside French drain is not enough or it's partially collapsed. So they need that inside drain to channel the water away.
Yeah.
And
If you
if it's done right, you'll
right.
never have a problem ever.
When you look exactly now, something to keep in mind is I had to have a waterproofing system put in an old house of mine, and it failed. Right? They put it in and it failed. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that warranty, buyers, sellers, whoever, it only covers the system. It does not cover the carpet that you just put on top of it.
Hell
And
no.
I had to, right. I mean, it ruined the carpet. I had to pull it all out. It was their fault. The system failed. You know what I mean? And it failed pretty quickly. So if you're putting a waterproofing system in, you don't have to like put carpet down right away. Give
You
yourself a
shouldn't.
little time for that
You
system
should
to
not. You
make
should
sure
not.
it's actually not going to, I did it. So, once it was done, we were like, okay, the insurance company took care of removal, right? Like they took care when we had a flood in a basement. And that's why we needed the waterproofing system. And when we got it put in, the insurance company had covered everything from the flood. But then when we put the French drain in, it didn't cover that. So that was like $10,000, six to 10,000 that we did.
Yeah.
I made sure I had it done very professionally, and I wanted that warranty. So I didn't read my warranty well enough. And when their system failed, and all my brand new carpet and everything that I had down there was flooded again,
Yep.
it was my responsibility because the insurance company had already paid to do it once.
Yep.
They're not paying again. And so I should have waited. I should have given myself some time and just
Six
made
months.
sure. They came out and they dug back up the failed area and they did fix it. But had I just waited a few weeks, it probably would have
Months.
not been an issue.
6 months.
Months, whatever. Yeah. I mean, if somebody's living down there, you might not have that luxury, but you can always do a temporary floor like those rubber mats you put in a gym, something to hold over until you're ready to,
Well,
completely refinish that floor.
this is why, thank God, knock on wood,
Yeah.
this is why waterproof LVT is the shizzle.
Yeah.
And I have seen cases where
It doesn't matter if you have a multi-million dollar house. LVP and LVT are just so nice, right? Like they're engineered, they're really made for this kind of thing in a basement.
unconscionable damage.
We could have an entire episode just on what we've seen
Water.
from water.
Water.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's that big of a deal. So keep in mind that if it doesn't have legs, it doesn't go on the floor. We'll go back to that statement. And when you go home and you look at your house, look around and just ask yourself, why are the shoes in the middle of the living room, right? I mean, we're using that as an example, but take the shoes, put them in your closet. In that situation, if you're going to have the shoes lined up in your closet properly, that's still on the floor. But go to Walmart, buy a $10 shoe rack, put your shoes on the shoe rack, and look at how much better it looks. We want to see it's a big, big difference. And again, we're going back to that $500 budget. Ask me what I can have. If you give me a $500 budget, I'm going to respect that. I'm absolutely going to say, okay, I need you to clean the walls. I need you to
add
clean the
4
floors.
zeros to that.
Right. I mean, but seriously, if you tell me, Sue, tell me what I need to do, but I only have $500. Okay. I'm going to have the lights changed. Chances
And
are I'm going, forget paint. If I'm not saying forget paint as that, I'm saying $500, John. Unless they're going to do it
paint.
themselves, I'm not painting for them.
I'm not.
Right. So if they're not capable of painting, you have $500. That's
I'm
it.
selling it wholesale, and I'm moving on.
Well, you probably are not going to get what you want, right? But you're going to get a whole lot more.
It's not what I want.
If you're going to get a whole lot more sellers if it's clean. And I don't mean clean like, oh, they broom swept it. That contract's going to say broom swept. That's all you have to do. We're giving you the tools to be able to get the most money you can get without breaking the bank if you have to. We want you to paint. We want the floors to be nice, period. But if you got $500 budget, I'm going to tell you what I want you to do with that $500. If you're willing to paint yourself, paint is on there. So please keep in mind, paint is super, super important. I'm not trying to take that away.
How about just clean the whole house and we'll go from there? I'll come back.
But clean means clean. It doesn't mean wipe down. It means that you come in as a client, and somebody looks at your floor, they're not seeing a mark on it. They're not seeing, if you've got stained carpet, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not going to work.
Yeah.
Not going to work.
I see that a lot. I went to see a house.
We see it all the time,
and
right?
I won't say where because God knows it'll come back to me. And
yeah,
I get to the house. I get to the house, and
yeah.
I see puppy pads on the floor.
I have a puppy pad story, but yep.
Okay, and I said, "When did you get your dog?" And she said, "How'd you know?" And I said, "Well, puppy pads." And she goes, "My dog's 12 years old."
Yeah.
I said, "Is your dog handicapped? I mean, I'm
Is your
stupid. I'm like,
dog
I'm stupid.
handicapped?
And she's
He
like,
did
no,
not.
no,
Is your
she showed
dog
me. She
handicapped?
says, I just don't feel like walking it.
Oh my God. John, is your dog handicapped? That's funny. Oh my
I mean,
God.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking your dog is like 6 months old and you're potty training it. She's like, no, it's 12. So
Oh, that's
listen,
funny.
if it was one instance in say 20 years or five, I see this all the time. I mean, honestly, I'm not a pet owner. I don't even own a goldfish. But on some level,
Oh.
that can't be that that can't be a good that can't be a good puppy parent, in my opinion. As I would come over and kind of coach them through, and I brought somebody in to do some painting, and it
Right.
faced the front of the house faced the south based on the street it was on, and the entire woodwork on the front of the house was all blistered. I mean, it was blistered.
Oh,
Right? Most of it probably really should have been replaced. I mean, it
lead.
was almost
That's lead,
like the
guys.
balsa wood. So anyway, I would come over and check, and I would come in the house, and lo and behold, there'd be a pile of feces on the floor.
Right.
I would say to him, I won't mention names. I'd say, "What happened?" He's like, "Yeah, he had an accident." Right? I said, "Well,
What happened? What
when
do
we
you
show the
think happened?
property, how can we mitigate some of this?" And he's like, "I'm not really sure." Right? So um, we started having showings. Right? And I would and the dog moaned. It was the most
Oh my
intense moan when the dog had to get up. So every time, like your dogs bark when somebody comes to the door, Amazon,
Yeah.
whoever, or somebody's out in the street, right?
Right.
Every time somebody would come to the door, the dog would want to get up, right?
Oh
But
God.
he had arthritis in his back and in his back, in his spine.
Yeah.
And so he would let out the most like excruciating.
That's horrible.
No, no, no. And I would have showings, and the agents would call me from the house and said, "What is wrong with the dog?"
Oh
And I'd
my
say,
God.
"It's a service dog. It's his first service dog. He's very fond of the dog. The dog is in pain." I said, "Well,
Ah.
I don't know that because I'm not a vet." And then,
Right.
this is true.
Yeah.
And then it's like, while we were there, the dog crapped in the living room. And so, listen. I had whoever from Baltimore County Animal Control call me.
Oh God.
And I was like, whoa. And he's like, yeah, we're getting complaints. And I was like, really? I said, look, it's his service dog. He's the owner. He cares for the dog. I mean,
Right. Like people don't want to part with their animals, and we totally get that.
and so listen. So an agent from my office showed it who's very, I guess it's
Animal rights. Yeah.
SPCA or whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
flipped on me. And so I had to tell him the dog has to wear puppy diapers,
There you
right?
go.
And so I
Although I
did
don't think
the
puppy.
household.
Maybe they do. Maybe they
They make
do.
puppy diapers.
Well,
Um, I got to
but
tell
usually
you
they
what,
wrap around. I don't know how they get them to
you
cover
cut a
that.
hole for the tail. That's how you do it. But
Oh
anyway, I
my
mean, you know,
God. If this makes the podcast, when we listen back to it, it's
I
going to
mean,
be so funny.
listen, it's
So
not.
people don't wreck your cars listening to us talk about these real life stories of what we run into. And let me just say, not to get off the puppy thing, but the smell of cat in this laundry room was
Toxic.
it was past. Kills, we've talked about kills a couple times. KILZ, KILZ, KILZ. I mean, the
Won't
only
touch
way
it.
you're
Won't
getting
touch
rid of that smell. And in this situation, the ammonia or whatever's in cat pee, or, I
urea.
swear it
Urea.
goes in the air. And
Goes
then it
into
gets in the
everything.
walls. Like it's everywhere. The cat doesn't have to pee in that specific area for that to need to be treated. Like if you're treating the floors, you got to treat the walls too, because that cat, man, you can't get rid of it. You just can't get rid of it. I had an appraiser call me, not to get off topic, but I had an appraiser call me because I sold a house that smelled like cat. I mean, it really smelled like cat. This lady kills it, put in new floors, painted the walls. Like
Didn't
it was,
matter.
it was 10% of what it was when I first went in there, right? She did everything she could. She really, really nice woman. Just had a cat that had, she told me it had diabetes. You want to have your cat in your house. It's very much like the pictures. We want you to live there and enjoy your life. If you're a cat person, you're a cat person. We're not judging you. But with those cats come things that we're going to have to say to you when we come in to sell your house. You want the most money out of your house, right? We know that. And we don't want to be hard on you. And your realtor really has a big pill to swallow sometimes when they walk in your front door, because, you know, it's hard to find someone that's going to accept certain things. Smell, probably number one.
Smells are number one.
They're
Smells are
number
number one.
one. Yeah, if you can smell stuff, you can't stand it. You got to go. Like smell is number one. If we're talking to you and there's a strong odor in there, and it's also from cooking sometimes. Like if you use a lot of spice and it's in your air, I mean, you can walk in a house and like, okay, these people are from this area or these people are from this region,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're smelling the spices that are unique.
yeah,
That's okay. We're not saying don't cook in your house. That's not at all what we're
no,
saying, but we
no.
may say we need to paint the kitchen because there's a strong smell of seasoning or
Well, the
spices or
thing,
whatever.
the thing that the tendency is this. I'll tell you, the tendency is this. My son had a friend in high school, and the tendency is to plug in 15 air fresheners.
Amen. Right.
Sorry, that won't do it. That's not
They
all.
don't mix
All I'm going
well
to
with the
smell.
other smell
All I'm
either.
going to
Like,
smell is I'm going to smell the food
yep.
and the vanilla lavender,
Yeah, it just
and it's
mixes
gonna it's
together
gonna
and
be
it's
like
still
this.
not good. Yeah, it's
It
still
will
not
not
good.
do it. It will not do it.
Right. I don't want Febreze sticks in the house. I don't
Oh
want.
no,
Now, if
no.
you have if you're living there, okay, it's different if you're living in the house, because then, like, if you come in my house right now, there's two candles that have wax scented stuff in them all the time. I love the smell nice in my house.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
it's a big deal to me. I like,
Yeah.
smells a big thing. If I get a bath and I'm using oil, I'm gonna, have essential oil in my whatever.
Yeah.
Like some people really are
No,
very
but
scent
it's
oriented.
it's it's the so you have a conversation, right? I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but it's always a flavor and vanilla, right?
Yes.
And you
Cinnamon and
can't.
vanilla. Cookies and
I
cream. Cream
I
is vanilla.
so I had a client had a house, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about things they had to do when we're this close to going on the market. And I show up for the photographer, right?
Yeah.
As soon as I hit the door, I'm like, lavender vanilla. I gotta find it, right?
I gotta
I
find it.
gotta
I'm on
find
a
it,
mission.
right?
Oh God.
So
Yeah.
plus I get there early. I'm turning the lights on, the whole 9 yards, right? I'm opening all the shades.
Yes.
Oh, side note, all sellers out there, right? If you like it dark and cozy in
Oh
your
my
house and
God.
you're
I was
selling your
that I was
house,
already bringing it up. Yep.
rip all those curtains down. I just want to see this, even if it's the standard plastic
Who
Walmart
cares?
little
Yep.
mini blinds. Get rid of the dark drapes. We're not living in a cave. We are not bats. Anyway,
We are not
so
bats.
I get there and I'm going through the house and I'm like, I can smell that lavender vanilla. I got to find it. So I ended up with like 13, 14, 15. And I take and I find, I go through, I open the pantry. And in there, I think everybody probably has this in their pantry. Actually, I have mine in my coat closet.
Yeah.
They have a bag, I have a bag that I keep like the grocery store plastic bags in,
Yep.
right? And so I open the pantry and there's that bag with all the bags in it. So I pull the bag out, right? But I get two, right? And I put all of the lavender, vanilla, whatever they were, right?
Right. Right.
I put them all in the thing, right?
Yeah.
And I tie them up And I go to the garage, open the garage, and I'm like, where can I put these? So I find the highest shelf in the garage
Yeah.
and I throw them up on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
And so seller calls me a couple days later and says, have you seen my air fresheners?
Right.
I said, yeah, yeah, I have.
I
He
put
said,
them in the garage on the top
oh,
shelf.
nope, nope, no. See, you're nicer than me, right?
Oh God, I'm much nicer than John.
You much nicer. I said, yeah, I got rid of those because those are a leading indicator that you could
You're
be. I'm not
covering.
saying you are, but you could be trying to cover up on another smell.
Yeah.
And he said,
Well, that's
well,
why we
I'm
use,
just.
right.
And
That's
I
kind of
said, well, the number one way you can unstuffy your house is when you're home on the weekend and the weather's nice. Why don't you open your slider and maybe a window in the living room? And
yeah,
that way you get a cross breeze and we can kind of funnel the stuff out, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, my wife really likes those. And I said,
Well, and
okay,
your new house,
she can have them back
as soon, right.
soon as we're under
Yeah.
contract. And he's like,
We,
well, where are they? And I said, they're in your house. And
right.
he was pressing me about where are they? And I said,
Smell for them.
they're very safe. They're very safe.
Yeah.
I
We,
never told them.
we constantly, and I guarantee they found them because they could smell them. One of the things that we,
That's why I double bagged.
one of the things that we really try to do in this podcast is have fun, you know what I
Yeah,
mean, and tell you the truth about what we run into. These are everyday things that we do, guys. These are things that we deal with every seller. That's why we tell, and you know, the fact that I'm telling the same stories as John's telling needs to be understood. We're sharing with you what we find, and you know, we're sharing the down and dirty. It's not like we're going to sugarcoat it. Why would you listen to this to hear how nice we are to people? We are nice.
we
We're
are
being
nice,
nice by being
but
honest, right? We're being
right.
nice by being honest. And sometimes you got to be cruel to be kind. That kind of applies here. You know, you have to say, this is not okay, and please, can we, I'll even say to people, can we agree to just remove this until you go into your next house? You know what I mean? And here's why. Everybody's going to think the worst of you. You know, the buyers that are walking in here are coming in here with a white glove. They want to know what they're buying. They want to know what they're seeing. That's why they're doing the walkthrough. That's why they're coming in with their inspectors. And if we try to sugarcoat things that are right there or hide things that need to be addressed, we're also painting that picture, right? Like,
Yeah.
buyers are not stupid. They're spending a lot of money on your house. Right now, they're spending a ton of money on your house.
Yeah.
And they're
Well,
taking a chance.
they also hired somebody who is equally as talented. And so,
100%.
do I think I'm the only one who can look at photos and see things in a picture that most people can't see? Heck no. There's probably people
Yeah,
out
I
there
mean,
much
I
better than me.
I
Much
was
better.
so impressed with this FBI guy. And if he ever listens to this, I still remember you. He literally, when he pulled that, and it wasn't the house he bought, he didn't end up buying that one, but when we looked at this, and there was probably like a 10-year gap between the two. So she might have been 15 and he was 25 at the time of the first picture. And then the married picture, she was probably 25 and he was like 35. So big difference in those
Right.
two ages, of course. But
Yeah.
we're not saying the dude was a pedophile either. That's not what we're claiming. We're
No,
saying she
no.
married her volleyball coach
Yeah.
at some point later in life, and he put that together. So cheers to that, you
It
know. But
doesn't take
that's
much.
why
It doesn't take much.
everybody in your house is looking, right? They're looking. They are picturing everything in there. So when you present your house and you say, well, that's going with me, why the hell would they look at that? Because they're taking in the big picture. Like, you can't help but look at pictures when you walk by them. It happens.
So sellers, if you have a collage of photos,
Yes,
I know you're telling a story, right?
but so are your pictures.
Okay, but you have to realize if you take your story, right, and you go, here's my story, and your house is for sale, People are reading your story. If you don't want them to read your story, then take your pictures down because they're reading your story because it's there.
Yeah, I mean, we want you to neutralize. We want you
See
to.
ya.
So, okay, so my $500, I'm still going to stick to my $500. So,
Woo.
to recap, right? To recap, lights. Now, I will tell you a secret, and this is probably something that people don't know because I certainly did not know it. In your energy bill, you are paying, everyone is paying for a service that allows you once a year to have somebody from the company come out. They'll change all your light bulbs. They'll give you an energy efficiency test. You should not have to ever pay for a light bulb. If you're paying Potomac Edison, BGE, or any of those places, mine was Potomac Edison, and don't hold me to this, but this is what the guy said when he knocked on my door. He said, "Hey, I'm here to do your energy, blah, blah, blah. Can I come in and look at what you need to do?" So he put in high energy light bulbs. He went through literally, I think he changed, you get 14 or 15 light bulbs per visit, and you can do it every year. So if you're calling them and saying, "Hey, I want my energy thing," whatever you call it, they'll come out and they'll replace all those things for you based on what you're paying. I
Right.
have 2 meters. My house was constructed and then they added an ensuite, so there's 2 meters. So I actually got like 28 bulbs. So almost every light bulb in my house was changed to daylight. Listen, listen, listen. If you have yellow lights in your house, I don't know what they're called, but they're like yellow. Go
Oh
to
yeah, incandescent.
whatever they're called. They're not bright. They're not white. They're like yellow. Well, they used to be everywhere, like an 80s house you walk into and they got those yellow light bulbs. Not bright yellow. I don't know what to say. Anyway, if you put in a daylight light bulb, you are going to have a much brighter light in the
Right.
bathroom, in the bedrooms. Just change to daylight, whether you call your energy company. But we're on my $500 budget, so call the energy company, have them come change your light bulb to daylight. And they are, what's the other thing that everybody wants? What do you call them, John? The light bulbs that are like bright.
Oh, LED.
LED. So they're daylight LED light bulbs.
They
That's
have
part of my
soft white and
$500.
daylight. So the
Daylight,
flat panel above me right here, these were all switched
fluorescent.
out. These were all switched out in the fall,
Okay.
and took out all of the old fluorescent light bulbs and all the ballasts. And
Okay.
so these units are self-contained. They're no more than about an inch thick. They none of these have ballasts in them anymore. You know how like if you have old lights and you flick it on, like remember in school
Yeah, and
you
it would
flick the
like,
light on and you hear that
yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
ballast
You did pretty
firing,
good.
right? That's
Yeah.
the ballast firing. It
So,
I can't imagine what in an older school where they haven't switched the lights out. I can't imagine what their utility bill is
right, I
because the
mean,
ballasts are
and it's
running so
free. If you're paying your energy bill, it should be free. And I think that this guy, if he wasn't lying to me, because he was really nice and he did it. So I got 28 free light bulbs that day. So I'm going to believe that he's telling the truth. He even showed me on the electric bill where I'm paying for the service, as it's one of those special fees that's on your energy bill. It's not an option for you not to pay it. So you're already buying those light bulbs all year long. You're paying $1 a month or whatever it is. It's
yeah.
in there. Call your energy company, ask them to come out once a year and change your light bulbs. They'll do it. Um, but make sure you change to daylight. So my $500 is going to the front porch, where the door where people are coming in. If you have a door that you used interior painting, okay, a lot of people have done it. We run into it often. We're not judging, but those lines that look like it's broken, John's judging. Those lines in it that dried and look like crispy paint or whatever you call it, that's interior paint. You didn't use the right paint on the door. You need to paint the door. Okay, so I don't care what you got to pay for that. That's coming out of the $500. Number one. Lights in the front, lights in the back. Those little lights, they matter because people are looking at the door that they're entering. So make sure the first thing they see is not a 20-year-old light that is rusted out. I mean, don't do that. Come in the house. If you've got hardware in your kitchen, a lot of that hardware, if you have old cabinets, but they're hardwood and they look really nice, then my next upgrade might be hardware for the cabinets. Because if we're keeping the cabinets and they look good enough and you've got rusty or brass or some kind of unattractive hardware on them, general rule: knobs on doors, handles on drawers. Knobs on doors, handles on drawers.
Oh,
It's a general, it's not a rule you have to follow. It's just a
okay.
general statement.
Okay. See, this is your door. This is your door, right?
Okay.
Your
Yep.
cabinet. Okay.
Your
And it
cabinet
opens
door.
and it opens like this.
Okay.
Okay, opens like this.
Yes.
This is above your sink. So
That's
normally
where the knob goes.
that's where the knob goes. You know where the knob does not go?
That right. You can't fix that.
You
That's
know
a
why you can't fix
70s
that? You know why you
thing.
can't fix that? Because you already drilled the hole
Yeah, the hole's in there. You can't fix that.
here.
So in that situation, we are going to probably hope and pray that you don't have that. And if you do, then we're going to do everything else, or you're going to get new cabinet front faces. Like there's no
So
way
I've
to get
seen
to
the
do that.
drawer. I've seen the drawer, right?
The drawer,
The drawer. It pulls out, right?
yep, with a handle most of the
Handle
time.
goes right here, right?
Yep,
Right in
yep,
the middle, right?
in the middle.
I saw one the other day, right here.
I mean, I don't mind that either. But here's the thing, guys: if it's got granite right above it, or your countertops right above it,
Can't get your
then
hands in.
it's hard. So most of the time the handle is in the middle of the drawer. These are not rules, these are general guidelines, right?
Yeah.
General guidelines, basic instructions. Basic. So when you're making these changes, that you're not sitting in settlement with somebody saying, like in the last podcast, your poor sellers that went and they bought new linoleum and they put it on the bathroom floor, and the lady was saying, I don't know if you heard the last episode, but John was talking about how the seller wouldn't listen and let him help her figure out what changes to make. And she put linoleum in the bathroom. And the seller was talking in closing about how quick she wanted to rip it out.
The buyer.
I mean, in a perfect world, you guys don't ever see each other and these conversations don't happen, but it's not normal. Usually at settlement, unless you ask your title officer, the buyer and seller are going to sit together. So
Yeah. So
just know that
so
it's not a good topic to say if you're a buyer, oh, I'm going to go change your house, because their feelings are involved.
here's why this matters. Here's why the right contractor matters.
Yes.
So I was coaching a seller through a listing makeover in Dundalk, and
Okay.
house was vacant. It belonged to mom, but they were
Okay.
adamant that they wanted to do some things to spruce up the house. I said, okay. So we talked
Okay.
about kitchen cabinets, right?
Yes.
The original kitchen cabinet, and they were nice. And they did, like we talked earlier. We did a granite makeover, under mount sink, new Swan's neck faucet. So
Yeah.
that, because the cabinets were good, right? And so I said, put some pulls on the cabinets. And
Okay.
I'm pointing to, so I said, put some pulls on the cabinets, and he says, I'll get somebody to do it. I said, okay, look, doors, drawers. And he
Right.
said, okay, okay.
God,
So
I know what you're going to say.
you know exactly what I'm going to say. So he said, I think I'm ready for pictures. And I said, well, let me meet you at the house. He goes, I'm having it cleaned, right?
Okay.
And I had connected him with Grace, who's my go-to cleaning queen.
Okay.
So
The
when
cleaning
we
queen.
when we do like a transformation where
Hmm.
we're kicking up a lot of dust, sand and drywall, all kinds of stuff, man, dust is everywhere. So
Yeah.
she's a cleaning queen. So she's there. I pull up, he's already there, and I go inside and I look at the cabinets, right?
Don't
And there
say it.
wasn't a lot of them. Sue, it's a little house in Dundalk, right?
Right.
Off
Right.
of Liberty Parkway. I
Yeah.
mean, they're little houses, you know?
Yeah.
So doors, drawers. And I
I
said to
know.
him, I said, did we miss something? And he said, well,
You asked for it.
I said, did we miss something? He said, I told the guy, put the pulls on the doors and put the knobs
Handles
on the
on the
doors
drawers, right?
and the pulls on the drawers. And I said, did you spell it out for him? And he said, no. And I
Right.
said, well, then you got what you deserve.
Oh God.
And I said, you
So
could have
guys,
supervised. And so here was my point. So rather than doing it himself, and literally, Sue, I want to say there was 8 knobs
uh-huh.
and maybe 5 pulls. 8 knobs, 5 pulls. Instead of doing it himself, or instead of saying to him, yeah, I ain't got nobody. Can you just get somebody? He said, no, I got somebody, right? I said, what? I said to him, what by chance did you pay for
Oh
that?
God.
And he said, $50. I said, let me ask you a question. Would you pay 250 to have it done right? He said, yeah, I would now. I said, but we can't because there's already a hole there.
You can't fix that, right? So we're not so people understand there's going to be listeners that have exactly what we're talking about. And we're not trying to say that that's going to kill your sale. That's not what we're
No,
saying. We're saying that if we are asked, we are going to instruct for these little tiny fixes. A lot of times we go in and there's nothing, there's no knob and there's no handle.
right.
So when you go in and they're sold that way, they're sold without them because you can personalize your property. When
Exactly.
we upgrade and we have that $500 budget, right? um, then we're talking about a different ball game. We're dealing with $500. So we are going to specify that when you clean those doors, like John was saying earlier, if that's our option, you're going to clean them, we'll wipe them down, restain them, do whatever you got to do, and then you're going to put hardware on that is going to age your property. Don't put flowered knobs on there that you got for free. You know what I mean? Like, don't do that. It might be new to you, but it's not going to be what everybody wants. We see it a lot. Tile. Don't put the specific heart tile in the middle and everything around it's white, right? Like, don't do something permanent. Paint is one thing. We can change that. But when you do your tile and you do your initials in your tile or something that we've seen every now and then, we can't change that. You know what I mean? You can, there are options for that, but that's a different podcast. So just be careful. Don't personalize it to the point where it's very personal, right?
So
When you're selling, you want to make sure that it is for everyone, basic,
so
neutral.
the reason that the whole drawers, knobs, and pulls frustrates me. So so we were talking earlier, right? Like um, my brain is automatically. I can look at something and I can tell you. Generally, I can tell you how big the space is because I have spatial understanding.
Yeah.
But everything to me needs, so I like balance, right? Some people don't care, but I like balance. And so what frustrates me the most about cabinets is, and the pulls and drawers, is they make this little bitty tool at Home Depot that's only a couple bucks that is a guide. You can
You just
literally
put your
stick it
dot
in.
there.
You
Yeah.
can stick it right on the edge of the thing, and it's got a dot right there. You don't have to go measure. You just stick it
No,
up,
you just
drill,
put your
stick it up
pencil
there,
in
drill,
there.
stick it up there,
Yep.
drill, stick it up there, drill.
It's
Right?
easy.
Same thing with the pull. Same thing with the pulls. You stick it on the top of the door. It hangs down. Drill, drill.
Yeah.
Right?
And so guys, one of the things, all right, so hardware, right? Light
Yeah.
fixtures,
Yeah.
daylight bulbs. We just gave you something that's going to save you a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
Call your energy company and have them come out and do that if that's something that's on your bill.
Yeah.
Um, then also for me, um, all right, so my $500 budget, I'm staying in the 500. I'm walking up to the door from the outside. I'm looking, that light looks great. It's new. The front door looks very clean or freshly painted. Okay, I'm going in. All right. Nope, nope, nope. I'm staying outside for a second. Okay. People, they make door handles for your screen door that you can switch out. You don't have to have a broken door handle. That's in the $500. Okay. How many houses, John? You're laughing because I'm telling the truth. How many houses do we go to where the screen door is broken? That is not acceptable.
Take it
Okay.
down.
Get a
Take it
new
down.
get a new door
Take it
handle.
down.
Your
Take it down.
agent might even buy it for you. I have in the past said, look, if I buy this, can you have somebody put it in? Because I really like this door handle to be fixed. Um, your agent might do that, may or may not. So that leads to, again, the companies that are available. Just to reiterate, that you can have them come out and you can give them the list of things that you want to do, and it just depends on what you're willing to pay. If you want to make 50,000 and you're willing to put 20,000 in, those are real numbers,
Right.
right? They're very real numbers.
Right.
So tell your agent. We hear all the time, I'm going to be a seller right now, right, John? Okay, I'm going to be a seller. I like that. I don't give a shit. I don't care what people think. If they don't want my house, they don't need to buy it. I'm not doing that. If they don't want my house, they can move and buy another house. That attitude is very pricey. I'm going to say that. Okay.
Well,
I'm not going to fight with you, seller. If you want to sell your house in its now condition, you can say to me, Sue, I'm not doing anything.
okay.
And I'm going to say, okay, here's your price.
Right.
No problem.
Right.
No problem.
Right.
Save me the work and the time that I'm going to put
Time.
in,
Time.
right? Save me the time, the money, and the effort that I'm going to put in to making sure your house gives you the most amount of money, if that's not what you want. But when your listing agent says, and it doesn't matter if you're in Florida, California, none of that matters. When your listing agent sits down with you and says, do I have a budget? You can realistically say to them, I'm willing to spend $500 on updates. What would you like me to update for $500? You don't have to listen to them. We're not, we're just giving you advice. You can say $1,000. I'm willing to put $1,000 into getting the house ready. Okay. I have $1,000 budget. Those numbers are real numbers that we can work with. And then we're going to walk through and do the walkthrough with you and say, okay, I would like you to change out the doorknobs. You have a brass one on this kid's door and you have a brushed nickel one on that door. It's very important that visually they match, right? Uniformity. It's just got to be simple and got to be done. Face plates, guys, face plates. If you've painted them, take them off. They're literally 10 cents. Right, John? I mean, are they still 10 cents? A box of faceplates is less than $1. Nope. I mean, less than $5.
No, they're not. They're more.
They're more now?
Yeah, the plastic ones are about, I'd say about 40 cents.
Okay. So.
But still.
And they come in a box for $5-6. You can buy an entire box of them and walk through. Now, if you want to clean them, clean them. I don't care. They just have to look new, right? I'm not telling you got to go put the 40 cents into a new faceplate.
No, don't clean them. Don't wait.
You choose to do whatever you want to do. It's going to be in my $500 list. So then from that, faceplates matter, right? People are looking at them and turning the light on. So that's a boom. I'm looking right at that faceplate. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, towel holders, okay, in the bathrooms. If you have a broken towel holder, it's another thing that you need to change, right? We see it all the time, right? How many times do we see, well, people are going to want to put new ones up. No, we want you to put a new one up. Put a new towel holder and make sure it matches the toilet holder.
My kids hung on it.
Yeah, I mean they break. It's common. Nobody's judging you. We need you to do that. Towels that are hanging in the bathroom, please invest in new towels that match whatever your shower curtain has. You know what I mean? Take a minute and do that. Your bedspread. All right, this is a big pet peeve of mine, John. You're going to hear me out, and you're going to laugh at me, and half the world's going to hear what I have to say. King size mattress, king size bed, California king, doesn't matter. The damn comforters that they make now are not big enough to cover the whole bed. Am I right? They're not big enough. Sorry. Whoever's making comforters, make them bigger.
So my personal preference, now this has nothing
Yeah.
to do with buyers and sellers.
Okay.
I don't need a comforter that covers my bed and drags the floor.
No, it doesn't have, but it has to cover them. So when I, it's a pet peeve, all right? When I walk into a room and I see the sheet because the comforter is
That's
not
different.
big
That's
enough to
different. No,
cover,
no, that's different.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay? So
Well, that's
the,
because they're trying to put a queen size comforter on
no,
a
they're
king size
not.
bed.
In my own house, I will show you. My husband, if I buy one more comforter, he's gonna leave. I'm telling you. Ladies, if you got some hint for me, put it in the comments because I don't know why I am buying UGG comforter, $200 for a comforter that doesn't fit my bed. Why? What has happened? I don't have a custom made king size bed. I got a king size bed. I have 3 comforters that I've bought in the last 2 years because I can't stand it. It's a pet peeve. It's driving me crazy.
I don't have a
Help,
problem.
help, help. Anybody that listens to this thing, tell me what I need to do to have a bigger comforter. It's a problem. It's a problem for other people too, because I see it when I go in their house. Now you're going to see it, John, and you're going to be like, damn, it is a problem. Sorry, John. I just gave
I
you another
like to,
thing.
I like to sell them vacant.
Okay, well, I don't. And they're
But I'm not
never,
worried about it.
well, so 80% of the time, guys, just so you know, and this is a number that probably is universal, and tell me if I'm wrong, 70% is the right answer, John, or what do you think? 70 or 80% are vacant now. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, 7. It could be a little bit more. It depends on where you are. It could be.
We're doing this to help you. We're doing this because we want to
Yeah.
shed a light and bridge a gap. We were talking about bridging a gap. There's such a big part of real estate that people don't know about. You wouldn't know. So
We do a bad job at telling people what it is exactly we do. And
100%. Like,
Facebook just says that we go to happy hour and we go on vacation. Oh,
yeah,
and
and
we
we're
list a
at
house,
happy
we
hour
sell a
because of
house.
all the crap that we dealt with all day. Like, I don't know, honestly, other than maybe a police officer or military officer or whatever, just to touch a little bit, we're going to do an episode on realtor real life stories, like of our lives, what we go through. But um, one of the things that I think is super important to understand is that your realtor's smiling in your face, they're being kind, they're being friendly. You don't know what's actually going on behind the scenes. I'll give you an example. There's this lady that's the seller, right? Now, my client switched lenders a week into their offer because they got a much, much, much better rate. They have the right to do that. It's in the contract that they have the right to do that. So the listing agent wants to know if the earnest money, the down payment was sent, right? Well, it was sent. It was done. Yes, it was sent. Okay. I want a copy of she wants a copy of the escrow agreement. Okay, no problem. Let me get that to you. Well, my buyer was in a sales meeting or something, and this listing agent was losing her mind over not having this escrow agreement back. So, I mean, I'm like, I'm telling you, I talked to the title officer, and yes, it's been received. She needs to get off work to sign this document. It's stressful. Her seller's probably saying, do you have a copy? Do you have a copy? Do you have a copy? Do you have a
Sure.
copy? You got to chill a little bit, buyers and sellers. This can be the most stressful transaction you're ever going to have if you let it be. If you've hired an experienced agent, ask your questions to them and then relax. Let them do their job, right? I mean, simply put, let them do it.
Yeah, but I will tell you from experience, and just in your particular scenario,
Yeah.
when I get a call from a buyer's agent and says, "Hey, my guy switched lenders," I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay,
Yeah.
we're not doing anything until we get a new approval, right?"
Right.
Because You're right. The
But
contract does say, the
you're not
contract does
out
say,
of the first approval, right? Like you've got two lenders that are working on your file right now because until that second approval is through, you're not getting up the first lender. You're buying the house with the first lender that approved you until that approval is shifts to the new
so,
lender.
so,
Yeah,
um, you're right. The contract does say the buyer has the right to
has
seek
the right.
alternate financing. That's what it says.
Correct.
And it says in that paragraph that that alternate financing
Must
cannot
meet.
increase costs to the seller
Yep.
in the contract.
And must meet all the contract guidelines. So
Yep.
that needs to be done. Like the paperwork that you gave to the first lender, do yourselves a favor, keep it in a file. If somebody comes to you 3 days in, another lender, and says, look, and then I'm going to be honest, it went from 7.25 to 6.25.
Yep.
There's no way that buyer shouldn't change, right? But the buyer is responsible for that 7.25 until the buyer gets their approval through the second. You can't do it. You can't change
Right.
until it's approved through the second lender. So there you go.
Yeah. And I'll just tell
Welcome to
you
today in whose
from
life.
experience, this is exactly what I say. Here we go.
Here we go. Welcome to
Yeah.
today.
Here
Yep.
we go.
What's today's? John got a call this morning on today from somebody doing something crazy, right? Like, so we're talking, we're sharing this information with you because this is every day, guys. This is like John said before, you are hearing the easy stuff. You're hearing the easy stuff. The stuff that we can't talk about is the stuff that's real.
It's the
And
heavy stuff. That's the
it's the
heavy stuff.
heavy stuff.
That's the
Right.
heavy stuff.
And we will share it after a contract's closed, after closing. So when we're talking about old situations, I mean,
No names. No names.
we're not given names, we're not given locations, we're not given areas, and it affects everyone. It's pretty uniform. But well, I think that we are over the 2-hour limit on this podcast. So we're probably going to cut it down to maybe an hour, hour and a half. But
We'll
I
cut it down
wanted
to an hour.
to,
Trim it to an hour.
yeah,
We're
an hour is good.
next week the appraiser's coming. So that's already
Next
been
week,
booked.
the appraiser's going to be here. Amen.
Yep.
You're going to hear the down and dirty from an appraiser themselves. And I can't wait. I love talking to appraisers.
So just to keep you guys interested, Sue and I talked before we did this. We started
Yeah,
this. We're going to bring you some people. We're going to bring you commercial agent.
a
We're
commercial
going to bring
agent.
you people who process short sales.
Yeah,
We're going to talk to people about auctions and foreclosures. And we're going to bring on flippers and investors. For
yep.
those of
I
you who
have a
have an
few
interest, stay tuned. That probably takes us out, with our regular content. That probably takes us
next
out
month.
another 2 months.
And if you want to hear about something, like you have an area that you want us to cover for you, then
Yeah,
let us know. If we
yeah,
can't, we'll do it. John and I will do it. We'll make sure that we answer any questions you have as well. If you had a situation that you want to share with us, you don't have to be a realtor to get on this podcast and join us and share your story.
yeah,
We're welcoming it.
yeah.
I might even be able to talk, John and we had a little taste test last week of doing a live where you guys can actually ask questions
Yeah,
real time,
yeah,
and we'll answer them for you. We're going to be a lot more careful
yeah,
in what we say because, we're both licensed realtors.
yeah.
We're not going to risk that, but
We'd like to add some agents from the DMV, District,
any,
Maryland, and
yeah, any
Virginia.
agents, you don't have to be with HomeSmart. This is
No,
not
no,
HomeSmart
no,
related.
no. I mean,
This is
okay.
Sue
And John.
dragging John in.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
not
we'd
HomeSmart.
like to hear about some stuff from Virginia. I mean, I got my own Virginia stories because I did loans for 20 years in Virginia and Delaware and Pennsylvania and wherever
Yeah, and
else.
if we don't respond, so you remember you're dealing with two 50-year-old people. So we don't have the technical skills. I have somebody that actually edits these for us. I have somebody that does these short videos. And he's amazing, and he's in his last year of college in computer science, and he's doing all kinds of stuff for us. And he is doing a lot of that stuff. So if you comment and we don't respond to you, please feel free to text or call or email John and I are both available. Like TikTok, my kids are loving the fact that I'm on TikTok now. I get these likes. You're on TikTok. You just don't know it. John, you're on TikTok. Your kids are seeing you on
This is
TikTok.
not on TikTok.
My daughter is like, Mom, every time I get on my phone, because, at 20, she's 22. At 22, she's going to sleep. She's looking at her TikTok, and here's Mom. She's like, oh my God, there's my mother again. So
I happened to
we're not that up.
I happened to go into YouTube the other
And you
day,
saw us.
and I was like, oh my God, I'm on YouTube.
Yeah. Guys that are sharing this, look, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Honestly, this has been a dream of mine for a couple years. I get annoyed, and I'm a kind person, and I want to make a difference, and I want to really make my life matter. If at the end of the day, I've made a positive difference, that's what really matters to me now. I'm on that. I've passed the whole middle ground, and now I've got 20 years under my belt, and I want to make your lives safer.
So if you
Honestly,
want to
that's why I'm
talk,
doing
if
it.
you want to discuss more about how to cram another 20 pictures on that wall, Sue's your girl.
I'm the one. Come to
Sue,
me.
and
I'll help you. I'll help
and
you figure it out.
I think we have to invent a comforter for Sue.
I need somebody,
It
please
can
tell
go
me.
from between king and queen. So
No, I don't want a queen. I
it
want a
has a
king.
pull out in it. It has a pull out in it, right? You know, how, like you have a
If I'm
trundle
doing
bed.
something stupid and you guys are going to laugh at me,
You have a
watch me
trundle
be doing the
bed.
comforter
You have a
wrong.
trundle bed, and you reach down, and now it's a queen. So we're gonna get her. We're
Right.
gonna get her a comforter that has like a trundle pull out in it.
There's got to be, I'm missing something. So guys, the hair is real. I mean, it's not really real, but it's real. I have blonde hair, and naturally. And now I'm teasing all the blondes out there. But the truth is that I have a king size bed that I cannot find a comforter that fits. I've even read the labels now that say will fit a California king. These are not custom made beds. So if I'm dealing with it, so are you. If you've come up with a solution, please add it to the comments. I would love to know how to fix it. And I'd love to share that with my clients, that I go in and I see their sheets and I'm like, no, I don't want to see the side of the sheet. So please, if you got something, give it to us.
Hey, I've been in houses you'd be lucky to see a sheet on the bed.
Yeah, and that's John's listing. Please feel free to call John. No, I'm kidding.
It wasn't my listing, but I have sold properties. I've sold properties where there's, it's a 3 or 4 bedroom house, and I can't find.
I will tell you that, in all honesty, and I mean this wholeheartedly, there's only a few properties that I have sold that were residential, not investment. Let me say that.
Yep.
That weren't good enough. I'll go in there myself half the time and say, look, can I just take the trash out? Or, I don't know, maybe I make my sellers feel so bad that they end up doing it. But the bottom line is, guys, that we're doing this for your benefit. You know what I mean? So please give us some feedback. Let us know. If you think we're crazy, we don't care. Do it anyway. At this point in life, we don't really care. So we appreciate you logging in. We appreciate you sharing. If you care to share, please do. And send us your questions in whatever way. I am checking, and the guy that does our editing, that puts all these posts out there, is looking for comments as well. Right now we're getting crickets. We get hearts and we get likes and we get stuff like that, but not a lot of people are commenting. So please feel free to do that. I really want some feedback.